continuing with Dick's basic tutorial on using Lightroom. Last time we talked about importing photos from a memory card into Lightroom and backing them up onto one external hard drive and making a backup copy onto a second external hard drive. Only the images on the first external hard drive get entered into the Lightroom catalog. Then we can develop presets on the way in. In my case, I used a preset that corrects for distortion in my camera lens that I use for most of my images. And I also add things like a copyright, which is under the metadata settings. So I copyright every image on the way in. And I also add any global keywords if those keywords apply to all of the images that I'm importing. And then we simply hit the import button and everything gets imported into our Lightroom catalog, and the images get moved or get copied from the memory card out to two external hard drives. I'm going to continue looking around at the library module in Lightroom today. So let's switch over to Lightroom. And Lightroom opens up and it remembers where it was the last time you closed it, and tries to open up that same catalog if you have multiple catalogs, and tries to open up the same folder you were in the last time Lightroom closed. So let's say, for example, I want to get those same images that we imported in my previous video tutorial. I can use the search engine in Lightroom to bring up those images because I did keyword the images. So to find them, what I need to do is go over on the right hand side, and I've got all my folders here, and you see it's a long list of folders. If I scroll up to the top, under the section labeled catalog, we have collections. All right? And one of the collections we have is basically a collection of all the photographs that are in this catalog. And it tells me right now that I have 66,533 images entered into this catalog at the moment. Now, if I click on that, in the center section, it will show me all 66,000 images. All right. Now, you'll notice it's centered on these images I had in the previous folder because one of them had been chosen, and it goes to that highlighted image. But I also have all of the photos, and there's an extensive long list here of photos. Okay. And now I want to find the images that we worked on the last time. So one of the nice things about Lightroom is it has this great little search engine up here at the top that's available in the library mode and when you're in the grid view of the library mode. And what I want to do here is I want to search for some text. So I'm going to come down here, and it says, well, what type of text do you want to search for? And basically I want to search my keyword files, my keyword locations, for any keywords that contain, all right, and actually I wanted to say contain all of the following words. And over here I type in the words that are relevant. Well, if you remember from our last video, I used keywords of fall colors. So I can type in fall colors. Oops. All right. And that gives us basically about 3,200 images at the moment. You see down here at the bottom, it'll say we got 3,221 of 66,000 and some images. All right, to nail it down a little bit more, I know the pictures were taken at Wordridge. So I'm just going to type in Word. Okay, and now we've narrowed it down to basically 1,667 pictures at Wordridge. Now, if I had more inclusive keywords, and I remember we did have sunset for some of the as a keyword for some of the images that I had brought in, so I can add the word sunset to this. All right, and sunset reduced it down to just 25 images of our total collection. And if I look through these images, I think, for example, this image here was one of the ones that was from the images we imported the last time. So the easiest way to figure out where this is, because right now this is showing all the images, and if I scroll down this list I have all these folders, but what I want it to do is I want it to highlight or jump directly to the folder that contains this image. So if we just go over and right click on this image, and from our list here we say go to folder in library, all right, it jumps directly to that folder. Now if I turn off the search engine up here by clicking on none, now it shows us the contents of only that folder. And you see that folder contains 86 images, and if you recall, these are the 86 images that we imported from the card the last time we were in here playing with Lightroom. So it's a very convenient little way to find images in a hurry. It's one of the really powerful tools in Lightroom is the ability, if you do your keywording properly and keyword your images as you're bringing them into Lightroom, and keywording them at multiple levels, then you can easily find these things, and you can see how quickly you can find them in Lightroom. Now, alright, so we're in the library mode here, and let's just talk about some of the general features of the library mode. You can see in the thumbnails, if I scroll with my scroll wheel, I can look through the thumbnails. There's a scroll bar over here on the right edge of the thumbnails. Alright, and like all the panels in Lightroom, we can close these panels if we need to, if we need more room. So there's a little triangle right in the corner on the left side here. If I click that, it makes that panel disappear. If I click the one over here, it makes that panel disappear. And if you want to bring the panel back, all you have to do is move your cursor over it, similar to what we do like in Faststone. And the menu flies out so you can use it temporarily. Okay, same thing over here. And if we want, we can get rid of up on top. There's a little triangle up here to give us a little more room, and there's a triangle at the bottom to give us a little more room. All right, and again, we can move our cursor down and we bring back the thumbnail strip that's down there, go up to the top. We can bring back the controls that are up on top. So this gives you enough room to work with. When you're looking at the thumbnail view here, there's a slider over here that you can change the size of the thumbnails. So you can make the thumbnails big, okay, or you can make the thumbnails very small with that slider. Oops. Okay, so we can make it that small. And I usually like to work somewhere in between. Let's say the moment set it about there. Now you notice by accident I hit this other little triangle here. This triangle controls what shows up on this bar that's right underneath the thumbnails. Alright? And what I do is I turn on as many of these as I can so I can see all these little controls that are down here. Now if you're working on a narrow screen computer like a laptop, you probably can't show all these things. Some of these commands, basically won't fit, particularly if you're using the side windows. And I would normally turn on all these by checking all these marks. The one that I don't check is slideshow. If you turn on slideshow, it gives you a little symbol here. I think I got it on. Yes. It gives you a little symbol right here that says impromptu slideshow. And the problem is I hit that accidentally all the time. What I'd like to do is go forward, go backward with these forward back keys. It's just when the heat of the action and you're moving things around quickly, they tend to hit this, and then it tries to preview and generate a slideshow for all of these images, which is okay, except it takes time to do it. And if I want to look at a slideshow, I can go into the slideshow memory separately and do that. Now my performance is slow at the moment because I happen to be doing a computer backup in background at the same time I'm trying to run Lightroom, so that's a little irritating. Okay, let me come back down and turn off the slideshow little icon, and now that little symbol disappeared. All right, and it looks like I also turned off the rotate one, which I didn't mean to do. Oh, I didn't turn off the rotate, but it went off on its own. Oh, okay, I have to select an image for it to be available. Now, if you want to select your images, there's a couple of shortcuts that are useful. One is Control A, that selects all the images in the folder we're presently looking at. And Control D deselects the images. And you can also select a range of images. For example, these are 4 similar images. If I select the first one and hold down the Shift key and select the last one, it selects everything in between. If instead I select the first one and I want to say skip this one but select these 2, I can hold down the Control key and click on each one of those. If I decide later, oops, I didn't really mean to select this one, hold down the Control key, click on it again, and it deselects it. So the Control key toggles. Okay, so it's very useful here in terms of selecting. You notice when you do select an image, if I select a group of images, that if I click, one of them gets more selected than the others. And that's useful because if we change to one of the other views, like the grid view, we're looking down here at the moment in the thumbnail view. But if we were to change to the grid view, which gives us the image full screen, when we do that, you see it brings up the image that was the most selected, comes into the grid view. Now let me bring back for the moment my panels down below. I'm going to click on the triangle so that stays. Let's go back up on top, click on that one. Click on the one on the right and the one on the left. Alright, and you'll notice it resizes the image on the fly as you're doing that. Now, these are our selected images here. Alright, we got 5 of them selected, but right now it's showing us the most highly selected of the 5. And the interesting thing here is if I click on the arrows, this is the forward arrow key and the backward arrow key. If I click on that, it goes to now the 4th image. See, that became more highlighted. And I do it again, it goes to the 5th image. If I do it again, it jumps back to that first image. So it's only going to show me the images that have been selected, and it's always going to show me the most selected of that group of images. All right, so even if I added a few more images by holding down Control, 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 all right, if I have, let's say we start with the 3rd image here as the selected one. Now when I go over, you see it selects the 4th image, the 5th image, then it jumps over those 4 images and goes to this image to show us. All right, and the back arrow works the same way. So that way we can easily control what's going on. Now the interesting thing, if we want to make global changes to any of these images, and I'm in the library view still, let me go down and click on the grid view, the shortcut for which is G, by the way. We're looking at the thumbnail view or the grid view, and let's say, for example, being back in here, let me just pick, well, let's say we pick 4 images. Let's take these 4 right here. So I pick these 4 images, and let's say that I want to make a change to the first image. I look at it and let's say I decide that all 4 of these images need to be darkened. In the quick develop mode here, which is only available in the library panel, I can come over here and they have, they're not really sliders, they're buttons you click on. But under exposure, there's a center button, and then if you click on the one next to it, you can increase the exposure by 1/3 of a stop, or the second button increases the exposure by 1 stop. And likewise on the other side, to the left of the center button, there's a button that decreases exposure by 1/3 of a stop and decreases exposure by 1 full stop. So let's say I want to darken these images. So if I just single click, you see what it did is it darkened the 4 images that I selected. Actually, it looks like it darkened 3 of the 4. I don't know why it quite works that way, but sometimes it sort of hangs and does all 4 at once and sometimes not. If I want to lighten up the images now by 1 f-stop to get back to where I was, if I click, you see those 3 came back. That one didn't change. Let me make it dark again by going exposure. Now, see, this time it did change. I think you have to wait for it to read in the previews of all these images, which I haven't really done here. I think that's why it takes a while. If you wanted to get it to sync faster, you can go down and hit the sync settings button down at the bottom. Okay, let me darken it down another f-stop and see what happens. I see now it only darkened up that one. Now the way to force it to do these other ones is to come down after you've done what you wanted to the first. Now what I'm doing is I'm telling it to not make these all the same exposure, but to simply decrease whatever the current exposure was by one f-stop and now a second f-stop. So I'm going to go down here and hit the sync settings, and that brings up this little window, and we can uncheck everything to start with. There's a check none. All right, and what I really want to do is we were changing the basic tone, the exposure controls. So I just want to click on that one. So the only change we're making here is exposure. And now I say synchronize, and you see now it syncs these other three to not match the exposure of this, but to change the exposure by the same amount. This is the only way in Lightroom if you want to add one f-stop of exposure to a group of images and you want to sync them, you have to do it in this library mode while you're looking at the thumbnails. If you go into the develop mode and use the sync command in the develop mode, and you change the first exposure, it would change whatever other ones you've selected to it. It would sync it to force them to be exactly the same exposure as the first slide. And if they were very different exposures to start with, they would get changed varying amounts. You know, these two here might have been changed by 2 f-stops, but this one might only be changed by 1 f-stop. And they would all end up giving you exactly the same overall exposure, which you may or may not want. So you got to make that distinction. If you want to just add f-stops of exposure or decrease f-stops of exposure, or any of these other features, recovery, black, fill light, whatever, then you want to do it in this panel here, and you want to do it while you're looking at the thumbnail view. Now, if you don't like what you did here, you can just hit the Reset All button, and then it's going to bring it all back to the way it was originally. All right. So that's that's a very useful little feature. So you can use these settings, and I don't really use them very much, except for tweaking the exposure for the most part, or sometimes increasing the blacks in an image. I'll use it for that too. But that's about all we do it here. Otherwise, I tend to change the settings in the develop mode instead. Now, one other thing I should point out while we're here is that if you want to change, if you make a change to one thing, for example, I want to change, say, a keyword here. Let's say I wanted to add the keyword, let's see, let me put in a comma. And for a new keyword, put in something like, I'm just going to call it Sam. All right. If I type Sam for the keyword, all right, now you'll notice it added the word Sam here in the keyword list, and it shows it for all 4 of these. If I add a couple of images more to this selection, hold down the Control key and click, say I add those 4 more images. Now when I look over here in the keyword panel, you notice it put an asterisk next to Sam. What that means is that the tag is applied only to some of the images. That keyword's only applied to some of the images that we currently have selected, of the 8 images we've selected. It doesn't apply it to all of them. All right. Now, we had applied the other 2, Fall Colors and Wordridge, we had applied that to all of the images before when we imported them. So the fact that they don't have the asterisks on them says that every image you currently have selected has a keyword Fall Colors and a keyword Wordridge, but only some of the images have the keyword Sam. All right. So that's what we're basically doing there. So if I want to remove that keyword, I can just remove it. Just delete it. Okay, and I think that will get rid of it for us. All right. Now, let's see. What else can we say about this? Oh, well, I think I'll do another podcast specifically just to cover keywords and playing with the keywords. It is useful that over on this panel, in addition to it's showing you the keywords we currently have selected, it gives you some other opportunities. It makes suggestions for you based on keywords you've used recently, and you can create your own keyword sets. These are sets of 12 keywords given a certain name that you tend to use all the time. So, for example, if I use one set of keywords when I'm in, taking photos on Wordridge where there isn't a lot of water, it's mostly, animals in the woods kind of thing, I would use one set of keywords. If I go to T-Town where there's a lake and a lot of water and a lot of birds that are on the water, then I use a different set of keywords to specify each type of bird that's in each image. So you can save these separately and bring them up very quickly by just dropping down this list here and choosing which of the things do you want for the keywords. All right. Now, it also, every time you create a keyword, it adds them to a list down here, and you can embed the keywords or organize them however you want. You can make them sub-keywords. For example, I have animals, then as a sub-field I have birds, then I have different types of birds, and then I have different species of ducks, for example. Okay, and I use different keywords for animals and places and events and all that kind of good stuff. All right. The other thing that's interesting to point out is you'll notice that if you select an image or a group of images, it'll show you all the keywords that have been selected for that particular image, and it'll show them as a check mark so that you know. Now, for example, I have 3221 images that have the word fall colors as a keyword, but what it's telling me is I definitely that this particular image that's selected right now has that keyword associated with it. And the other keyword was what? Wordridge. So if I come down here to, there we go. See, to Wordridge, even though I have 26,000 photos roughly that have a keyword Wordridge on them, this is one of them. Okay. And if I wanted to remove the keyword, I could delete it the way I did by just erasing it up in the keyword window panel. But I can also just uncheck it here. If I uncheck it here, it deletes this particular image or whatever number of images I have selected. It deletes that keyword from these images. All right? So that makes it an easy way to edit your keywords. And I guess while I'm here, I might as well do the metadata too. All right, the next panel down, the last panel we have here, is basically the metadata that comes in with when you import the image. Lightroom tries to look at the metadata associated with the image, if it's a JPEG, a TIFF, or even a PSD file or a RAW file, and it pulls out all the metadata information it can and keeps a list of it. You can display the metadata a bunch of ways. I usually use it for the default setting, but there's a whole bunch of, you can specify smaller or larger subsets of metadata, and but the default one seems to contain most of the information photographers use. Now, as a preset, it tells me what preset I've applied to it. These pictures were shot in 2006, so I applied a 2006 copyright for a metadata setting. But I could have chosen any other preset that I've created. These are user-created presets in case I wanted to put a copyright for a different year on it. It shows me my file name as it came out of the camera. Actually, I've added the letter P to it because these have been processed a little bit. And it tells me what folder they exist in. It tells me that it's up to date. In other words, if I'm playing with the image in another program and modifying the image slightly, Lightroom recognizes that the image has been modified, and it gives you an opportunity to update the image and update the settings and bring those new settings, the new things you did to Lightroom, back into that image in Lightroom. So this is just telling me that it is up to date. The caption, it tells me what type of camera it was used. I used a Konica Minolta digital camera. The copyright is 2006, Dick Budnick Photography. It's a copyrighted image. I'm the creator. Had I applied ratings, and you can apply ratings to the image, you just click down here. You can do a star rating. Okay. If you like, to apply any rating to the system. You can apply a label to the system, red, blue, green, whatever. Let's say we put a blue label on it. It shows you it highlighted in blue. If I go to the next image, you see it sort of makes the cardboard blue. All right. So if I have that over here now, you see now it tells me that I rated that 1 star and that it's a blue label. And I can modify these if I want. For example, I can turn that one back down to none. And there's a way of turning off the damn rating here. Oh, I guess you just click on it a second time. Yeah, there you go. You click on it a second time and it turns off the stars. All right. So far I have not been using very much the stars or the labels. It gives you the capture time. So it knows that this image was actually taken at 4:48 p.m. on October 19th of 2006. Gives you the dimension size. This is the pixel size coming out of your camera. Of course, it gives you the exposure and shutter speed and the f-stop that you used and the focal length of the lens you used. Now, if you're using a lens with a crop sensor, it gives you the true focal length of the lens. I have a crop sensor. My camera has the sensor magnification of 4 for the crop sensor. So I actually have to multiply this setting by 4 to give me the actual effective focal length that we're used to talking about. Okay. The ISO that you used, the flash did not fire, and knows the camera is a Konica Minolta and that the model is an A200. All right. There is a section here for comments. I've never added anything in here, but presumably you could if you wanted to. All right. So those are basically the settings that we have available over here. On the other side, we have, as we said, a list of folders. Let me go all the way up to the top. And we have basically a little navigator window up here. And the navigator window is useful if we want to zoom in on an image. If I go to tell it to fit it on the screen, it takes whatever the most selected image is, gives it to us in this view, which is actually the loop view. We switch back and forth down here from thumbnail or grid view to the loop view. All right, and anyway, once we've got it in the loop view, if we click on fill, it fills the available part of the screen with the image. You'll notice that in doing so, we lost the top and bottom of the image. We can go to a 1-to-1 view where it zooms in. We can go to a 2-to-1 view. We can actually drop down a little arrow here that allows us to choose any of these magnifications for the second one. So you can go as high as, if you like, 11-to-1. Now it takes a second because it's got to generate the preview, so this isn't quite as fuzzy as it looks. It will probably snap into focus, I hope, at some point here. At least let me go. I can do it at a lower view. If I do it like at 4-to-1, it could just be that fuzzy a picture. One thing about pixel peeping is that yeah, I guess we are there. So it's not the world's sharpest picture by any means. But anyway, that's a good way of evaluating how fuzzy your picture really is. I tend to work with these settings at 2-to-1 and 1-to-1 are the two most useful views. And you can see that in the navigator window, it makes a little box. And if you want to move the picture around, you can just drag it around there. Or you can just put your cursor inside and drag it around the image itself. And the interesting thing is if you click on this, it goes back. It jumps back and forth between the last 2 views you used. So I generally click on the fit view where I'm looking at the entire image, and I usually click on either the 1-to-1 or the 2-to-1. I tend to use the 2-to-1 more than the other one. Okay, so now if I click back and forth, it jumps from the fit view up to the 2-to-1 view, back and forth every time you click the cursor. And I find that useful for doing a lot of work. All right, what else do we have over here? Okay. Under the catalog feature over here, we have this all photographs. What these are basically, these are all collections. Some of these are smart collections. Well, actually, I think all of these are smart collections. So if we take a look at that. So the Lightroom by default has created a smart collection that contains all the photographs. There's a quick collection, and that's currently, the little plus sign here means that's the collection. If we just say add something to the collection, it's going to add it to that collection automatically. And right now I have 42 images in the quick collection. If you want to add more images to the quick collection, for example, if I'm looking at the thumbnail view, if I go in and look, let's see here, if you move your cursor over the image itself, you see there's a little circle that shows up in the top right corner. All right. If I click on that, it turns a dark gray. All right. And what that means is it's now added it to a collection, and it adds it to whatever collection has got the plus sign on it as a target collection. So you see my 42 value here went up to 43 when I did that. If I want to take it out of the collection, I just click on it again. Now this has gone back to 42, so it's throwing it out of that collection. So think of this as an ever-living collection that changes depending on what you want to do. Now it also keeps track of collections for the previous import. The last time I imported images in with the import command, I imported 39 images. The previous export that I exported out as a catalog were 274 images. That was some images I was transferring over to a different Lightroom catalog that I have on my laptop computer. All right. Now, then we have underneath this, we have the folders, and it doesn't show us all of the folders that we have on our computer and our external hard drives. It shows us only the folders that have been imported into Lightroom, and it shows only what hard drives they came from. As you don't need, Lightroom doesn't need to know, and you don't need to know exactly where that folder's created, and you don't have to memorize every path or have it show you the path with all the subfolders getting to that folder. All you have to know is that the folder's there, and as long as you don't move the folder outside of Lightroom, Lightroom can always find these images, even if you don't know exactly where that folder is located. That's a very useful feature. And it makes it nice and clean so you can actually see the folders that have your images. Now some of these I do use. You can see I use some subfolders down here to get to the images the way I normally store my images. All right. So if we come down and you see one of the folders, the one that we're currently looking at will be highlighted if I get down there far enough. Where the heck is it? There it is. So the current folder that we're working on here is 2006_10_19, and they've been processed images. All right. So that's the folder view. Now there is, if we go further down below the folder view, we get down to the collections. And again, as we said, we could have what they call smart collections. This is collections that you set rules to. And whenever an image meets the conditions that you set with your rules, it will be automatically included in these smart collections. So, for example, if I've gone through and labeled this image here with the color red, for example. Right now I have 10 images in this total collection that have a red label on them. So if I go in here and click on this particular image and change the color to red, all right, see now the 10 just went up to 11. And if I were to click on this, it would take us out of this folder and take us over into, well, not into a folder, but it would take us to show us what's in that collection, and it would show me all the images I have that I have labeled with a red label. All right. If I remove this color, you see now this goes back to 10. So it's a very nice way of keeping track of things. You can create smart collections using any kind of rules you want by just clicking up here, and you can create regular collections. And I use regular collections for putting together like slideshows. So for example, I did a trip to Montana. I went through and worked on the images, and I have narrowed it down to 361 good images. And I basically saved all of those. I just selected all the good ones and told it to save them to a regular collection. So if I want to get to these images in a hurry and get to the final version of these images, all I have to do is click here, and all it's going to show me is the good images from that trip. Now to create a collection in general, what we do is, we basically click on the little plus sign here for a new collection. And it asks us, what do we want to do? Create a collection, create a smart collection, create a collection set. Well, a collection set might be a name that says something like Dick's Slideshows. And then underneath it, we would have Dick's individual slideshows, Montana, Mount Marcy, whatever, places I've been. All right. And of course, we can sort the collection, sort by name, sort the images by name or by kind within the collection, which is very convenient. So if I wanted to create a smart collection, if I just want to create a regular collection, all right, it brings up this little dialog window, and I give it a name. In this case, I might say it's Montana Slides. If I want to put it within a set, well, right now I don't have any user-defined sets. The only subset that we have is smart collections. I don't want to put it in there, so I'm going to leave it at none. If I've selected a bunch of photos, let's say I selected 20 photos out of this folder right now that are highlighted, and I have this include selected photos, it'll take those 20 photos and it will add them to that collection right now. All right. You can also make virtual copies of the collections. Some people like to do that. I haven't saw the need to do it quite yet. All right. I'm going to cancel that rather than start it. If I wanted to create a smart collection, click on that plus sign and come down to where it says Create Smart Collection. And now this gives you a set of rules. You give it a name, and what you might call it This could be Dick's 5-star ratings, for example. And again, you can define what set do you want to put it in as a subset. And it's a smart collection, so it makes sense to put it under smart collections. And then you say match all of the following rules, or any of them, or none of them. And then, for example, if you want to do ratings, I can say include all the images that have a rating greater than or equal to, and I can say like 3 stars. Okay? And or I could say anything that's less than 3 stars, or is not 3 stars, or was within a range of 3 stars if we're doing a range here. So, gives you a lot of options here. And you don't have to choose just ratings. You can choose a whole choice of any of these things. And pretty much you can organize a collection by virtually anything you can think of. All right. So, very versatile system for making up these collections. And I should point out, I'm going to cancel that. I should point out, when you do make a collection, it doesn't really use any file space, because it's not like you're copying the images from the folder they're in to some other folder that's called collections. All it's doing is creating a virtual shortcut so it can find these things later. It never moves the actual original image, and and never makes a copy of the original image, so that you don't have to worry about using up a lot of computer storage space to do this. So it's very smart at the way it handles the memory here, the usage of the memory. All right. So that's sort of that's most of the features here of the library module. Just to point out a couple of things down at the bottom, as we said, we can in fact we can filter the folder down here by filter it for stars and for labels directly down here. And there's also flags down here for pick and reject flags. I haven't been using the flags very much, but some people really love to use the flags. And I can turn the filters on or off. Generally the filter is turned off at the moment. All right. And all right. Other things that you can use down here is you can sort the images by a bunch of different settings. By default, it comes in and it sorts the image by capture time. But you can change the order to any way you want, or you can use a user order and just drag and drop the images around on the thumbnails around, and it'll remember that, and it will use that same order for the collections unless you tell it not to. All right. So that becomes very useful at times. Now, okay, so the views that we have over here, I talked a little bit about this, I think, the last time. Okay, so there's a couple of areas we haven't covered here in the library module. If we come down here to the bar at the bottom, which, by the way, you can turn this whole thing on or off over here with this little triangle. All right. But generally we keep it on. And we've been talking about the grid view, which is what we're looking at right now. And of course this is the loop view, which shows us a single image. But there are two other modes here. One is the survey mode. Okay, what survey mode does for you, if you select several pictures, let's say we pick that many pictures, it tries to show us all the pictures at once in this area. Now, you can't do a lot with them here. You can't zoom in. None of the zoom controls work or anything here. So the only thing you can really do to make them look a little bit bigger so you can see what the heck you're looking at, other than a little bit larger thumbnails, is to get rid of the side panels. And the shortcut for getting rid of the side panels is the tab key. If you hit the tab key, it makes them temporarily disappear. It toggles the side panels on and off. Okay. And again, if you move your cursor over to where the side panels are, you can make it reappear. Okay. But right now, so we're looking at these images, and you can look around and do whatever you want with these in terms of playing. If you decide, okay, I really just wanted to compare, say, this image to this image and this image, those 3 images, I can get rid of the rest of them simply by clicking on the little, when you hover over each one, you get a little X in the corner, and we can just basically click on the X to get rid of what we don't want. And I'm going to narrow it down to 3 here so we can take a look at 3 of them. Okay, so that's a little bit better comparison. You can see what they look like. So useful at times, not as useful as you'd like it to be probably. Now the other one down here is called the compare view, and C is the shortcut for it. What this allows you to do is to compare similar images. Probably its most useful thing is if you're trying to determine if the images are exactly the same or equal sharpness or that kind of stuff. So if you happen to shoot a burst mode, for example, let's take 5 pictures here. All right, and if I go into that mode, the compare mode, what that does for us, and again we can get a big view or a small view. If I hit tab, we bring the side panels back, but let's leave them out for the moment. So you can compare the pictures, and the advantage here is that you can zoom around. There's a little what looks like a lock down here. If you can unlock it, see the lock opens up, or you can close it down so it's locked. If you keep it locked, it syncs these two together. Now what we're looking at here is we're looking at the first image. And if you look carefully, there's a little kind of a white dot in the upper corner of what would be the cardboard. The second image has a little black up in the corner. So the little white dot indicates that this is the, quote, selected image. And you see it says select up here at the top. It's the image on the left. And then we have a candidate image. And the idea is you're sort of comparing, this image, the candidate with the selected image and say which one's better. Now, for example, let's say we like this one, the candidate image better in this particular case. We can swap these images and we can make this image the selected image of those two. And there's a little control down here that says make that image the select image. So that's number 15. All right, it moved it over here. All right, and not only did it move it over here, but it threw out that past image and it looks at the next image in the sequence. So initially we had a little white dot on this first image over here, on the one on the left, and the black dot on the second one. Now we've got the little white dot on the second image, and now we're bringing up other candidates to compare it to. So let's say I don't particularly like that one. If all I do is I basically hit the forward arrow to say move on. Now you see it moves the black dot over to the next image. If I go again, it moves it over to the next image. And if I do it an extra time, it doesn't do anything because it's already at the end of that selection. I can bring it all the way back, jump it back so that the black dot is going back to the first image. Now we're back to the ones we did our selection on to start with. Okay. And if we decide, well, okay, I really didn't, I really like this one on the right better in reality, then I can make it select, but then it'll try to compare it to the next image in line, or I can just say, let's swap that image. So we swap them around. So we're still looking at the same two images, it's just that it flipped them around left to right. Okay. So, and if I want to then bring up the next candidate, again I click, it brings up the third image in line, and if I can make that my new select if I want or not. So it's just a quick way of doing this. Let's see, can you add ratings at this point? I don't think so. I think you just have to keep an eye on what's what here and decide which ones you like. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, you can do it. Down here there's a pick. There are flags down here. You can flag the one you want if you had similar images. Let's go back to where we had the similar images. Let's say these were two are almost identical and the only difference is maybe focus or something like that. What you can do here is you can come down here and you have a choice of two flags. One is you can flag one of these as a pick, or you can flag it as a reject. If you set it as a rejected image, what happens is it doesn't show up anymore in Lightroom unless you go in and specifically ask to see all your rejected images. So if they're really disgusting and you say, I'm never going to use this one again, you can add that flag. And if it's a pick, it means it's one of the good ones, and then you can sort later by picks and see which ones you thought were the best of a folder or a collection. All right. If we hit the X, it deselects the photo. It doesn't erase it, it just deselects it from this group here. So for example, if I went over to one that doesn't really fit in the group, like that one, and I hit the X, you see it just deselected it down here. All right. And let's see. And I guess I said we can zoom in on this in this mode. As long as the lock is locked, they zoom in together, synced. Now they don't exactly line up, so that's not good in this case. But let's say we wanted to compare the the little green pine tree here. I can move it around to where I get it in a spot I like. Now, you notice again, one of these has got sort of a white border around it. That means it's the more selected of the two. If I click over here, you see the white border shifts to this one. Now if I unlock the lock and I continue to zoom or pan, it no longer syncs them together, and I can try to find that damn green tree. It's got to be there somewhere. There it is. Okay. So we could look at them in a comparison sense side by side that way. And again, you're looking at it and saying, well, which of these is the sharper, which is the better, whatever criteria you want to use for comparing these two together. And by the way, if you relock it at this point, all right, now they are locked and they go in sequence. They go zoom together. Not zoom together, but move together. In fact, they zoom together too. If I zoom out, at least as far as they can, at some point they break apart. Okay. So really that's it with the survey mode, with the compare mode and the survey mode. There's one other feature we haven't talked about here, and I'll talk about it I think next time because this is getting unbearably long. I'm going to go back to the grid view, and down here in the grid view, in fact let me hit my tab key to bring back to side panels. There is a little, what looks like a spray can of paint. This is a very useful feature if you've got nothing selected, for example. I can do Control D so none of the images are selected. If you click on that little painter, you see it turns it into a cursor, and it turns out you can spray on different things onto the individual images, and you can spray keywords, for example. So, if I had a keyword that said, fantastic sky or best picture, or, I love the red, very red, for example, in this picture. Well, I clicked and I shouldn't have. I should have put the keyword in first. I should have typed in a keyword, say very red. All right. And once I've got it typed in, and I take my spray can, I click on it. See, and it assigns the keyword very red. So now it doesn't show up here right away because we haven't selected the image. I can do this on a different one. Let's say that's very red, even though it's not. All right. If I go down and I'm done with the spray can, I just click and it puts it back here. Now, if I do highlight that image, all right, you see over here it added very red to it. And same thing, if I go down on this one, it added very red to that. All right. And it should have created, hopefully, a keyword down here on our list for us that says very red. Fall colors is there. Places tells us that we have Wordridge, okay. And I'm coming down further and further. And sure enough, when we come down far enough, we see there is very red. And if I blow it up and take a look, and you see we have two images that we've added the keyword very red to. One thing, by the way, if you let's say we select something else, or deselect all the images altogether, Control D, and if I just hover over very red, you see it lit up to put a little white border around two images. Those are the images that have that keyword. All right. For example, all these images have Wordridge as a keyword. Let me come up to, if I can find Wordridge. I lost Wordridge. Ah, there we go. Okay. There's Wordridge. If I hover over, you see all of them light up. I go away from it to any of these other keywords, they don't light up. So as long as we have any of them have that reference Wordridge, we're okay. Now when I hit Control D and that went away, okay. See now Wordridge is here, but it doesn't have a check on it. But nevertheless, even though it doesn't show a check, it does light up when I hover over it. So anytime you hover over anything in your keyword list and you see it light up over here, you know that keyword applies to those images. Okay. So I should come in and do a more detailed thing on keywords. Oh, let me go back to that spray tool, the paint can again, because the other place that's really useful for doing things is adding ratings and colors. Probably more useful there than for doing keywords. So if I click on the paint tool, instead of choosing keywords, if I come in and say choose a rating, and let's say I want to pick the ones that have maybe a 3-star rating, so I can look through the images and say, yeah, okay, I'm going to apply it to that one, to that one, to that one, to that one. You see it's added to 3 stars to each of these. Now, interesting, if you do have an image highlighted, or a group of images highlighted, let's say we pick from there to there. We highlighted all those 9 images, those 11 images, and if I then get my spray can, and let's make those 4-star ratings, all I have to do is click on any one of them, all right? And because they're all highlighted in the thumbnail view, I'm applying that rating to everything that's been highlighted, all right? Same thing with colors. If I want to add labels to these, let's say we want to add a green label, and again, all I have to do is go to any one of these and click, and you see it adds the little green label to all of those. Whereas if I go to the individual pictures, I can add the green label, but it adds them one at a time. So you got to be careful about this, and sometimes you get yourself in trouble. You have things selected and you forget you have them selected, and you meant to change one image, or the keywords or the ratings on one image, and if you got them all selected, it turns out it changes it for all of them. You have to be a little bit careful with this. And I should say it only makes these changes when you're in the grid view. If we switch over to the loop view or into the develop module, you still have these ratings showing up down here. But if I click on it, even though I've got a whole bunch of images selected here, if I want to say just rate it as a 1-star, the one that's currently selected over here, okay, I'm going to give that a 1-star rating. Basically, you see it didn't change all of the other ratings, it only changed that one. Whereas if I had done the same thing, a 1-star rating here, let me turn it off, there, and turn it back on, you see now it applies the 1-star rating to everything that's been selected. So again, you have to be careful in Lightroom as to what module you're working in when you're making selections and not making selections. Okay? I'm going to stop this here because this is getting way too long. We'll come back and pick it up with maybe keywords and then move on to the develop mode in a future podcast.